Today is January 24th. Were Bible times peaceful? Let's find out together as we read Genesis 24 and 25. As we continue to read through the Bible in a year, I'd like you to read Genesis 24 and 25 today. Now, you'll notice that we're not reading a certain number of chapters. Actually, what I'm looking at is a certain number of pages. In my Bible, we're reading about 3 pages a day in the Old Testament. Genesis 24 is the story of Abraham as he is aging, looking for a wife for his son. He's too old to travel, so he calls his trusted servant. That servant is named Eliezer. Come to find out later that he is from Damascus. He is actually so trusted that Abraham declares that he would be the one to inherit all of Abraham's possessions. That shows us that this is much more than a slave. This is a trusted member of Abraham's household. But he calls Eliezer to himself, and he sends him out to find Isaac, a son. Eliezer goes, and we have this beautiful story of Eliezer's devotion to Abraham and looking for a wife for his master's son. He finds her, Rebekah, they return. Then in chapter 25, Abraham dies. Before he dies, we see that he took another wife after Sarah's death. Now he would have been quite old by now. Still, he has 6 sons with this wife. And God blesses that lineage. God blesses Ishmael's lineage. And God, of course, blesses Isaac's lineage. But what I noticed in this chapter and what I wanted to kind of emphasize to you is the open hostility among all of Abraham's descendants. In chapter 25, verse 18, after Ishmael and Isaac come together to bury Abraham, their father, verse 18 says Ishmael's descendants occupied the region from Havilah to Shur, which is east of Egypt, in the direction of Ashur. There they lived in open hostility toward all of their relatives. The next paragraph is the story of the birth of Jacob and Esau. Esau is the firstborn. They're twins, fraternal twins. And in verse 24, when the time came to give birth, Rebekah discovered that she indeed had twins. The first one was very red at birth and covered with thick hair like a fur coat. So they named him Esau. The other twin was born with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So they named him Jacob. The name Esau basically means hairy. The name Jacob basically means the wrestler. Open hostility. At the end of chapter 25, we read that Esau was an outdoors guy, Jacob was an indoors guy. When Esau was out hunting one day, he came home, and we begin to see more about Esau's personality. He said, I'm hungry, I'm going to die. I'm starving, I'm going to die. Jacob is cooking some stew, and we see some of Jacob's personality. Jacob says, Esau, I have some stew here, I'll give you some. But what's in it for me? Esau goes on and on about how he's going to die. Jacob says, then sell me your birthright. The birthright is essentially the inheritance. Esau says, what good is my inheritance if I die today? He was not in danger of dying, but it does show us something about what he was like. He sold Jacob his inheritance that day. Amazingly, this was binding. And years later, Jacob, even though he was born second, takes all of the rights of the firstborn. The inheritance of the firstborn was to receive two portions. In this case, two sons, so they would take his father Isaac's possessions and divide it into three. The firstborn received two portions, the rest received one portion. Jacob received the two portions when Isaac died years later. Was it peaceful during the Bible times? No, not at all. It was just as hectic and scattered as life is today. There was open hostility, as we see open hostility today. Much of what Scripture writes is what to do about that hostility. So what about you? Are you feeling attacked today? Take it to the Lord. Bible times and your time are made for hostility. The Lord will help you through it. Like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you use to listen to this devotional. Tomorrow, we'll ask the question, is it okay to play favorites?